Do you really think you deserve that money? The words from my stepmother's call struck deep, like cold steel against my skin. Gripping the edge of my hotel room desk, I fought to keep my pulse steady. Janet's voice dripped with satisfaction as she told me she'd drained the trust fund my mom had left for me. I'm Gabriella Mitchell, 28 years old, and for years, I thought I had finally broken free from the poisonous web of family drama. As a pharmaceutical sales rep, I was always on the move, hopping from city to city today. Minneapolis. It was supposed to be a regular Tuesday, preparing for tomorrow's meeting, not sitting in a hotel room while Janet gloated over stealing my inheritance. Thanks for letting me know, I said, keeping my voice cool, though fury churned inside. I could almost hear the surprise in her silence. Janet had clearly expected me to fall apart, to beg or scream. Instead, I offered nothing but calm. "That's all you're going to say?" she asked, disappointed by my lack of reaction. "Tiffany needs that money for her wedding and new house. What are you going to do? Waste it on your pointless career?" I thought of my mom, who passed away when I was 16. She'd built an empire from the ground up, and that trust fund was her way of ensuring my future. Meanwhile, Jeanette married my dad just 2 years after Mom's death, had been trying to claim it as her own ever since. "Anything else?" I asked, maintaining my composure. The silence on the other end told me everything. What Janet didn't know was that 6 months ago, I had a conversation with Mr. Harrison, my mom's old lawyer. He had warned me about Janet's suspicious attempts to get her hands on the fund. Together, we'd set up safeguards, legal protections that would not only prevent unauthorized access, but also make it prosecutable if she tried. "You're such a disappointment," Janet spat, trying once more to provoke me. "Tiffany deserves it more than you ever did." I hung up the phone and turned toward the window, watching the city lights flicker outside. My hands trembled, but not out of fear. I was prepared. Everything was on record, every call, every attempt, every lie. Janet had finally overplayed her hand, and now I was ready to fight back. Living with Janet had been suffocating after my mom's death. When I was 16, my dad remarried her just 2 years later, and Tiffany, her daughter, only 13, came along for the ride. Tension filled the house immediately, a quiet storm that never quite passed. My mom had worked tirelessly to build her pharmaceutical consulting business, creating the trust fund, not just as a financial safety net, but as a symbol of her protection and love. To Janet, however, it was a symbol of everything she wanted for Tiffany, a way to level the playing field she believed was unfair. "Your mom wouldn't want you to be so selfish," she would say, guilt-tripping me into sharing. "We're all family now." But we weren't, not in the way that mattered. While my dad threw himself into work, trying to fill the hole my mom left, Janet focused on pushing me to the margins. Tiffany became the family golden child. Every small win was treated like a grand achievement, while my own successes, like my academic scholarships and business school acceptance, were overlooked. Janet made sure my dad only saw what she wanted him to see. The turning point came during my college graduation. I had graduated at the top of my class, landed an incredible job, and done it all while juggling part-time work. But my dad couldn't attend. Tiffany had a slight cold. "She needs her father right now," Janet insisted. That's when I knew nothing would ever change unless I made it happen. I packed up and moved out the next day, focusing on building my career. The trust fund stayed untouched, not because I didn't need it, but because accessing it meant dealing with Janet's constant interference. Every visit home felt like an emotional battleground, where she made jabs about my privileged position, about how Tiffany had it harder without the same advantages. Then, 6 months ago, Mr. Harrison called me with news that made my blood run cold. Janet had been poking around the trust fund, but we had anticipated this. Together, we'd put legal measures in place. Janet might be ruthless, but I wasn't that naive 16-year-old anymore. I was my mother's daughter, and I had learned how to protect what was mine. The trust fund wasn't just money, it was the legacy my mom had left behind, and no one would take that from me. That night in my hotel room, I pulled out a photo of her smiling, confident woman, the kind of woman I had always aspired to be. The trust fund was meant to give me the chance to build my own path, to take risks, just like she had. I dialed Mr. Harris's number, steady despite the fire still burning inside me. He answered quickly, his voice a calm anchor. "Janet finally tried something," I said, getting straight to the point. "She says she's transferred everything to Tiffany." "I anticipated this," he replied. "I got an alert about an attempted breach this morning. Don't worry, Gabriella, our security measures worked perfectly. Every move she made is logged and documented." Relief washed over me, the tightness in my chest easing. "So, nothing's been transferred?" I asked, needing confirmation. "Not a penny," he confirmed, "and we've got everything we need to prosecute her for attempted fraud. The documentation is airtight. Shall I proceed with the next steps?" I thought about all the years of manipulation, subtle digs, the way Janet had slowly poisoned my relationship with my dad. She had been so sure of her control, so convinced of her victory, that she hadn't even considered I might be 2 steps ahead. "Yes," I said firmly, "it's time to end this. Send the evidence to the family lawyer and copy my dad on everything. He deserves to see exactly what his wife has done." "Consider it done," Mr. Harrison replied. Then, after a pause, "Gabriella, your mother would be proud. She always said you were smarter than anyone gave you credit for." I ended the call, exhaled slowly, and opened my laptop. My client meeting could wait. I booked the earliest flight home. This time, I would be the one in control. Boston greeted me with crisp autumn air, but I barely noticed. My childhood home stood unchanged, yet everything felt different. Maybe it was me. I had called ahead, but I had mentioned Janet's phone call. Some things needed to be said face to face. I found them all in the living room, that Janet and Tiffany. Janet's smug smile faltered the moment she saw me. "Gabriella," Dad said, concerned, "I wasn't expecting you so soon. Is everything okay?" "Actually, Dad, we need to talk." I pulled out my phone and the file Mr. Harrison had sent me. "Janet called yesterday. She told me she'd emptied my trust fund and given everything to Tiffany. I thought you should see exactly what happened." Janet's face drained of color. "I was just trying to help, Tiffany." "Don't," I cut in, my voice like steel. "Every attempt you made to access the account was logged. Every forged signature, every manipulation, it's all here." I handed my dad the file. His hands trembled as he flipped through the pages, his expression darkening with each one. "Janet, what did you do?" His voice was barely above a whisper. "She's lying," Tiffany blurted, her face red. "She's always been jealous of me." I pulled out another document, full trust fund statement. "The money is still safe. Janet's attempts failed because I was warned months ago. I took precautions." Janet's composure cracked. "You set me up." "No," I replied calmly. "I protected what was mine just like my mom taught me to." The silence that followed was deafening. My dad kept reading, his jaw tightening. The emails, the forged signatures, the bank's records of Janet's desperate cause when her plan failed. "I did this for our family." Janet's voice wavered. "Tiffany needed." "Stop." My dad's voice cracked. "Just stop." He turned another page, his face crumpled. "You forged my signature." Tiffany started crying at her usual crocodile tears, but real, genuine shock. "The police will want to talk to you," I told Janet. "Mr. Harrison has already filed the reports. The bank is involved now." "You planned this," Janet hissed. "You knew I would, Tree." "No, Janet, you planned this. I just made sure I was ready when you did." I turned to my dad. "There's more. Mr. Harrison found proof she's been skimming money from your account too. Small amounts, over years." My dad went pale. He looked at me, then back at Janet. "Get out." His voice was quiet but firm. "What?" Janet's tone turned shrill. "You can't be serious. You tried to steal from my daughter. You've been lying to me for years. Where then, Janet?" Tiffany let out a choked sob. "Ed, please. You can leave with her," he said, his voice hollow. The weight of 12 years hung between us as Janet and Tiffany gathered their things, throwing accusations and tears around in equal measure. I stood by the window, the same one where I used to watch for my mom to come home from work. I could almost hear her voice. Always be prepared, sweetheart, and never let anyone take what's rightfully yours. In the weeks that followed, my dad and I have long overdue conversations. One evening, we sat in the kitchen, the same kitchen where my mom used to help me with my homework. I failed you, he admitted, staring into his coffee cup. After your mom died, I was so focused on not being alone that I didn't see what was happening right in front of me. I hesitated, then reached for his hand. We both made mistakes, but we can move forward now. Janet faced charges for attempted fraud and financial exploitation. She tried to paint herself as the victim, but the evidence was overwhelming. Tiffany sent me an email claiming she had known about her mother's plans. I wasn't sure I believed her, but I understood she was dealing with her own reckoning. As for me, I had my inheritance, but more importantly, I had the truth, and for the first time in years, I had my father back. And that was worth more than anything Janet ever tried to steal. I'm sorry, Tiffany wrote. I always thought you had everything handed to you. Mom made it seem like you were the privileged one, but now I see she was just jealous of what your mom built for you. Mr. Harrison helped me take the next step in my life, launching my own business consulting firm, something I had always dreamed of, but had been too cautious to pursue. The trust fund my mom left me became the seed money for my new venture, just as she'd intended. Your mother would be proud, Mr. Harrison told me during one of our meetings. She always said you had her business sense and your father's heart. She knew you'd do great things when you were ready. Dad started coming by my office for lunch every week. Sometimes we talked about Mom, sharing memories that Janet had made too uncomfortable to discuss for so many years. Other times, we talked about the future. He was finally starting to look like himself. Again, Dad, I remembered from before Mom got sick. You know what your mom used to say about you? He asked one day. She said, you were like a diamond, pressure just made you stronger. Life took on a new rhythm. My consulting firm grew quickly, attracting clients who appreciated my direct approach and industry knowledge. I built a small team, including Sarah, a brilliant analyst who reminded me of my mother. Same drive, same determination to prove herself. Janet's trial ended with a plea deal. She avoided jail time, but had to pay significant restitution and was banned from working in any financial capacity. The last I heard, she had moved to Arizona to live with her sister. Tiffany stayed in Boston, working as a teacher's assistant. We kept minimal contact, occasional emails, nothing more. Dad threw himself into rebuilding our relationship. He shared stories about my mom that he had kept buried for years. How they met at a business conference, their early struggles to start her company, the late nights planning their future. Each story helped heal a little piece of what we'd lost. One evening, as we sorted through old photos in the attic, we found Mom's business journal. Inside was a letter addressed to me, dated just weeks before she passed. My dearest Gabriella, I'm leaving you more than money. I'm leaving you the freedom to choose your path. Don't let anyone dim your light or tell you what you deserve. You're stronger than you know, smarter than they give you credit for, and capable of anything you set your mind to. Trust yourself. I do. Love. Mom. Those words became my mantra as I built my business. I framed the letter and hung it in my office, a daily reminder of where I came from and where I was going. Dad retired from his job and started volunteering at a grief counseling center, helping other families navigate loss without losing themselves. Sometimes, he consulted for my firm, bringing years of experience and a perspective that perfectly complemented my approach. Looking back 5 years later, I'm amazed at how much has changed. My consulting firm has expanded to 3 cities, helping pharmaceutical companies streamline their operations just like Mom used to do. The trust fund she left me didn't just secure my future, it became the foundation for helping others build theirs. Dad retired completely last year, but he still comes by the office to mentor younger employees. He says it keeps him connected to Mom's legacy. We have lunch every Wednesday, making up for all the years we lost to Janet's manipulation. The hardest lesson I learned, it wasn't about money or betrayal, it was about standing up for myself. Mom knew that one day I'd need to fight for what was mine, and she made sure I had the tools to do it. She taught me that true strength isn't about being tough, It's about being prepared and patient enough to wait for the right moment. Sometimes I visit the old house where I grew up. Dad still lives there, but it's different now. The walls have been repainted, the furniture rearranged, all traces of Janet's presence erased. In Mom's old office in a library found her collection of business books last week. Inside one, she had written notes about teaching me to run the company someday. I never got that chance with her, but I'm building something of my own now. Every decision I make in my business carries echoes of her wisdom. The trust fund she left me wasn't just about money. It was about believing in myself enough to stand firm when others tried to take what was mine. Janet's betrayal taught me something valuable. Sometimes, people show you exactly who they are, and the best response is to be prepared. I'm grateful now for those difficult years, because they shaped me into someone. My mom would be proud of someone who doesn't just survive challenges, but grows stronger from them. The family photo albums have been reorganized, keeping only the memories that matter. On my desk at work sits my favorite picture, Mom and me at her office, both of us laughing about something long forgotten. It reminds me daily that while some people try to tear you down, others build you up in ways that last a lifetime. On the anniversary of my mother's passing, my father and I visited her grave together. We brought fresh flowers from her favorite gardenia tradition we had started that year. Standing there, I shared with him the letter I had found in her journal. He read it silently, his hands trembling slightly as he held the worn paper. "She was always thinking ahead," he said softly, his voice thick with emotion. "Even when she was fighting for her own life, she was fighting for yours too." In that moment, I realized that every step I had taken to protect her legacy, every choice to stand firm, every decision to build something meaningful, was her final gift to me. He placed a hand on my shoulder. "She would be so proud of you." I smiled through my tears, and I couldn't be prouder to call you my dad. Together, we stood in quiet reflection, knowing that while some wounds never fully heal, love and resilience have the power to transform even the deepest scars into strength.